Hi everyone, it's Jordan Ray here with another Google Apps scripting video. I'm pretty excited about this video. It's actually a very new um, release from the team over there at Google Apps Script, the CLASP tool, which allows you to develop these kinds of scripts locally on your local machine instead of out there in the cloud. I am not a huge fan of the text editor, though it's not terrible. Um, though it is much better to develop locally in something like VS Code or Sublime Text, where you have a lot of really cool text editor features. Before we jump into that, I want to quickly mention I am going to start a Patreon um, account to help um, me keep developing this channel and doing these kinds of projects that really help teachers to kind of maximize productivity. My goal is to uh, hopefully go to ISTE this summer in Chicago, and Patreon will help me accomplish that goal. That being said, let's dive right in. Okay, the first thing you're going to need to do is have Node.js installed. I'm on a Windows machine, but the installation process is very similar for Mac. You need to install, I would just install the uh, recommended for most users version, though current, it's not going to hurt you at all to install that. And if you already have Node installed and it's an older version, that is fine too. I think pretty much anything back to version 6 should work with what we're doing. And also, if you're on Windows, you need Git installed. Well, you don't need it installed, but you need some sort of command line tool. And in this case, I'm using Git Bash, which comes with your Git installation. If you're on Mac, you can use iTerm. In Linux, you've got it built right in, and Mac has it built in too. It's only us Windows folks that have to kind of find our way. And I actually think you can use the CMD also, though I think you'd be much better off installing Git and using Git Bash. Then we've got to install this CLASP tool. With your Node installation comes a tool called npm, and we're going to install. I'm going to add the G flag for global, and it's Google CLASP. And we can go ahead and start that installation. Okay, now that that has finished installing, I'm going to make a little test directory for just to kind of play around with and get used to this tool. And let me cd into that test folder. Now the first thing we got to do is actually run CLASP login, and this should pull up a little login prompt on your browser, just like you see there. It's going to ask me to log in. I'm allowing the CLASP tool to modify scripts on my drive. And it says you can close it, no problem. Back to the console, and we'll take a look at this command line here. Control L will actually clear this out if you want to, if you're a little, you know, particular about what's on your command line. Control L clears that. So now we need to actually CLASP create, and I'm going to just call it test. It's the name of my project, and this will create an appscript.json file. And I think all it has in it is a script ID, because it's going to be creating this test right out there in your drive too. Enable the AppScript API. So we have to follow a link here to your user settings to then enable the AppScript API, and it's just toggling a switch on. That's simple. And then we can close out of here. By the way, while I'm actually in the dashboard home here, um, what does everybody think of the new layout to the dashboard? I'd be interested to hear what you think on Twitter. Please let me know what you think. Maybe I'll do a video just about using the new dashboard, some of the things that you can do with it. Now we're back to the command line here. I'm going to clear that out. And actually, if I just list the files in this directory, oh, this is really slow, isn't it? The bash tool is very, very slow. Oh, I thought it. Oh, sorry, I have to run it again. CLASP create test, and now it should actually create the JSON file, and I think that's it. I think it's just going to create the JSON file. Let's see here. And yeah, it really is. The git bash is very, very slow. Okay, so we've got an app script JSON. I use VS Code. You can use whatever text editor you want. But VS Code I started using it maybe a month or two ago, and really enjoying it. It's super fast, though this is not evidence of that. It's running very slowly right now, though I think this is the bash terminal. I can't tell. Okay, so now I'm gonna just open this up next to it. Oh, and we've got okay, so clasp.json, that has the script ID in it, and then appscript.json. Okay, very simple little JSON. Now, we are going to create some new files. One is going to be .claspignore. And what this is going to do is I'm going to make some very simple little stuff here so that when I push and pull from the repository, it doesn't send anything crazy up there. But I'm not going to push everything that is HTML, Google Script, and appscript.json. So those should be ignored. Now I'm going to run from the console clasp pull. This should, you know how every time you start a project you get that basic code.gs? That should pull in right here just with this clasp pull. Cloned one file. It didn't create it. That's funny. Well, let's just create it ourselves. Code.gs, and I'm going to write a function, test, logger.log, test. Now, I'm noticing there's no syntax highlighting here. We can fix that pretty easily too. If you just go into settings and then file associations, I'm going to add this to into my settings, and then I'm going to star.gs, and I want those to be read as JavaScript. And save that, and yep, perfect. Now I've got syntax highlighting, and then over here it even has this little JavaScript icon over here. So I'm going to save that, and we should actually send this code.gs. Let's make sure that hits the cloud. Pushing files, code.gs, appscript.json. Perfect. So now if you look on your drive, you would see those changes that we made. Now, one other thing that's a super basic implementation of this, check the GitHub repository for any other for all the other commands that you can use with this command line tool. Command line app script project, I guess. Yeah, it must be app script project. You can actually deploy right from here. You can change the versioning. You can clone existing projects. Tons of cool stuff that you can start to automate, because really the power of this now is you can bring in tools like Gulp to automatically make your deployments on changes. Now, if you're interested, stick around. Um, Otherwise, hit the command line and start playing around with this. But I'm going to actually set it up so that Gulp will do a lot of the hard work for me. So I'm going to say install global, not global, sorry, say dev, and I want to install Gulp and Gulp exec. And while it's doing that, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it gulpfile.js. And in here, I'm going to run const gulp equals require gulp. Gulp is it'll really take all the hard work out of this. It'll automate some of these processes. It's basically just a really fancy command runner. So I'm going to then run exec equals require gulp exec, and we can actually just tack that on the end. I'm going to create a task here, and I'm going to call the task, I'll just call it push, and we want to run a function in there, and what we're going to do is just run exec, and that's going to be CLASP push, and I think that will do it. Now I'm going to also create a watch task, and this is going to gulp.watch, and there's two parameters I got to put in here. They're both going to be arrays, because basically it's going to be whenever any file.gs changes or any file.html changes, then I'm going to run push again, and I'm going to set up a default task. Call it default, and all the default task is going to do is start watching my files. So now it should, every time I change this code.gs, it should push it up to the cloud. Let's test it here. Now in this, I'm going to run gulp, and that should start the watching process. Let's see. Let's find out. Here we go. Starting watch. Started watch. Finished watch. I think it should. Let's make sure. Function. Testing gulp. And log. This should be pushed. And if I save that, oh, something crashed. So it's definitely watching. Exec is not a function. So in my gulp file, gulp exec. Well, the only way to maybe you have to run it as a it's a method, maybe. That should be a property. Let's see here. Gulp exec. Check the documentation. Oh, it's child process. Interesting. All right, so let's just fix that. Easy. Child process. Save that, and we should be able to kill our little watch process here, run gulp again. Possibly. It's not the fastest little thing in the world here. Um, I was using this on Linux and it was much, much faster. So let me run this again. Third try. And I'm not even going to put anything in that function. Let's just save it. Started push, finished push after 9. Well, I thought you would see a console log. And when you load up in your text editor, you can see there it is. It pushed all that code up there. One final thing. You may have noticed when I was creating the gulp file, I had it also grab HTML files. Well, this is so that we can actually use the power of VS Code to, if I create an HTML file here, and use the exclamation point, it's all this code, snippet stuff is built in. I'm just going to call this test, and I'll put in, oops, h1 tag, save that, and now back here in the console it should have pushed, and I can take a look at that, refresh this, and there it is, that index.html built in right there for you. So yeah, use the all the powers of kind of a local text editor to really streamline your development process. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What other kinds of ways would you like to see me demonstrate how to use some of this stuff? There's tons of extensibility that you can do here. And as I'm saying this outro, I'm realizing I forgot one last little thing here. Um, this node modules folder is everything that you have installed with gulp. When I ran those npm install gulp and gulp exec, everything pulled into this node modules file, and you want to make sure that you have this CLASP ignore file created, and either this little command right here is what ignores that file. Otherwise, it's going to try to push all those folders into your AppScript project, and it's going to give you some kind of error message. It's going to error out. So make sure that you have that gulp ignore file, and that CLASP ignore file. That being said, hit the command line and start having fun with this. Cheers, everybody. Talk to you soon.